of the Hamblen County Budget Committee. Ask all those in attendance, please turn your cell phones off, and all commissioners, please turn your cell phones on, your microphones on, cell phones off. Do we have any visitors wishing to address the committee at this time? We have 3 minutes.
Linda Noe, Joe Stevens Road. I've remained very quiet during all of the meetings so far. I know you evidently just received some handouts, which again, the public has not been provided this information, but will be asked to fund the budget and will be asked to pay any wheel tax increase. And I'm just going on what I have heard, that there's a proposal to increase the wheel tax by $23 from the current $27. Of course, that's also in addition to what the state charges. Now, there was a temporary waiver of the state fee, but once that goes back on, and for most people it has already kicked in the next time you renew. This was in 2020, $56 state and $27 wheel tax. So when you add another $23 to that, that will be almost $80 for each person when they go to renew a tag. And as we all know, a lot of people have more than one vehicle. They may have a work vehicle, a farm vehicle, a personal vehicle, vehicles for children. So this idea that it's just nothing is not true. And furthermore, as I say, that $23 is on top of what people are already paying. Just like when you add to the property tax, as you did 3 or 4 years ago. That was 3 cents at that time, but that was on top of the taxes that people were already paying. So you really can't isolate it like that. When the budget was introduced, 42 or 12 cents had already been removed from the school fund and put into the sheriff's or into the general fund, and most of it ended up with the sheriff. And we all know exactly why. That was to make it as though we're not asking for money to pay for the jail staff. We're going to make it for the roads. How about make a hard decision, go back, look at everything. If we're in such great shape and we have a greatest fund balance and we're the envy of all the counties, we should be able to balance our budget and fix our roads without a wheel tax increase. Thank you
For your comments. Anyone else wish to speak?
Holden, West Point. Even though you raise my wheel tax, are you going to guarantee I get my road paved? Don't seem fair, does it? I have to still pay the wheel tax, but I may not get my road paved. I may be dead before I get my road paved. But I still have to pay the wheel tax. Shame on me. And I live on a fixed income. Help.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to address the committee? We will move ahead now to old business. Mayor Britton.
Good evening, everyone. And tonight the objective is when we adjourn, that the committee will have recommended a budget to the full commission and to be voted on at the end of the month. You should have received tonight some new documents for some of the budgets, some of the full budgets, and you should have received those. You should have received a copy of the presentation that you'll see. A memo calling for the special called meeting on June 29th for 5 o'clock and then the MOU, it was passed out. The MOU, the document that has to be submitted with the grant application for the SRO grants. And the sheriff and his staff, I watched or participated in a webinar with other sheriffs and mayors yesterday, and got some information, and I'll share that with you later tonight. But there is an MOU, and that's the one that the Sheriff's Department and the Board of Education have to sign to get the SRO grant. Let's start with discussing the property tax rate and the structure of the property tax. This is the proposed property tax structure. It's moving 12 cents from the general purpose school fund to the general fund, making the general fund 79 cents and general purpose schools 54 cents. There's no increase in the bottom line property tax rate, and 176 for property inside the city of Morristown and 197 for property outside the city of Morristown. And that 21-cent difference goes to the sanitation fund. It keeps us within the lower, as far as tax rate, the lower combined tax rates for East Tennessee communities, so that keeps us in that area, and also, it just keeps us there. And then as far as maintenance of effort for schools, and we've discussed this, when you approve the school budget, it maintains our maintenance of effort for schools and what it has been the last 3 years. So, in the funding, the local funding for schools, is down. You'll notice, let's show the next slide. Yeah, the funding for schools, local funding for schools is $673,000 less than it was for the current budget. And that's the one-time money or the non-recurring money that was funded last year. And so the school system didn't ask for it, and the maintenance of effort is what we have to maintain under the new funding formula for the schools, and they received $13 million new dollars from the state and their program. Now, before I go on to the SRO grants, any discussion on that or any questions? You've already approved it, so we don't need a vote. You approved it earlier this month. Okay, as far as the SRO program, so we are, Sheriff Mullins, his staff, and I are negotiating with the Board of Education and the City of Morristown about funding some of the startup costs for the SRO program. Now, the $75,000 grants are for each. The way it is structured at this point, there's 18 schools in Hamblen County that have unique identifier codes. So we get $75,000 times 18. Now, Sheriff Mullins did ask the question during the webinar of the State Safety Commissioner, Jeff Long, about we have 3 campuses. They have 2 buildings, and then we have Russellville, where there's a couple of miles apart. And he asked the sheriff to send him those schools and with an explanation, and then they'll make a call on that. So we may get some additional grant money to fund SROs. Let's see.
If,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
if we don't get the additional state funding, that leaves us 3 schools out there unprotected.
Well, you'll have one for 2 buildings.
I understand that, but we still have 3 schools out there that are unprotected. And if someone comes in to do harm, they can do a lot of harm in the 2 or 3 minutes it takes for the SRO to get from one building to the next.
What Mr. Bunch has indicated to us in conversation is that the Board of Education wants all the buildings covered. So they would pay the difference.
With an SRO, not a SSO. Very good.
Is that your understanding, Sheriff, in that?
Okay, very good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
can I ask the mayor a question?
Yes.
Mayor Britton, I had a citizen stop me on the way in today and ask up here, but just so everybody else can hear as well, the $75,000 per SRO, how many years are we guaranteed that?
What Commissioner Long said yesterday is that as long as the state law stays in effect, it's funded. I mean, the intent by the legislature was to make it continuous, that it be reoccurring funding.
All right, is that just for hiring that individual, or is any of it designated per se training, per se fixing the vehicle? I mean,
We would get $75,000 per school for salary, benefits, equipping, all the costs that are involved in having an SRO at the school. Now, if we choose to spend more than $75,000, then it's on us, like the additional SROs, or it's on us. So through time with inflation, is it going to cost more? I would expect it to. Then it's up to the legislature to decide whether or not they want to increase that. But right now, it's at $75,000 per school.
may I ask what kind of cost we're looking at? Because if I remember our discussions correctly, they wanted to do a vehicle per SRO. And if I misunderstood, please correct me at this point. But what kind of cost are we looking at for doing that?
Well, we distributed the cost to you, that it was around $70,000 salary and benefits for starting.
Yeah.
And then about for 20 SROs, the startup costs are about $1.5 million. And we're negotiating with the city and with the school system on covering that over a 2-year period.
How many SRO officers you got to have, Bill?
That we still don't know. We're thinking 22. Is that what? Is it? How many SROs are we going to need?
It'll be a total of 21 now, and another boarding school will be complete.
The new, okay, 22 next year. 21 for 23, 24, 22 when they open the Miller Boyd School for the elementary children.
Is that counting the ones that we already have at the high school, sir?
Are those new ones or ones that existing? That includes all of them.
Okay.
Any other questions? Now, the SRO grant money and expenses are not in this proposed budget. We'll amend that in July, once we get information from the state to know exactly how much grant money we'll receive, and we finish talking with the city and the school system on how much of the expenses they will cover. Any questions on the school budget? That's the biggest, yeah. And as Mr. Bunch mentioned, they have money budgeted for SSOs that they could use to help out with the equipping, and then the city of Morristown already funds 2 SROs in the high schools, and so we're talking about them contributing that money to the program, and we run the program. Okay, just to kind of review At the overview meeting at the end of May, we showed you this chart and how sales tax was distributed throughout the different funds. And so I wanted to update you on that based on the budget proposals that you will vote on tonight. For schools, we're estimating that we'll collect about $20 million in sales tax for schools. Remember, that's the first 50 cents of every local sales tax dollar by law goes to schools. And our sales tax continues to grow. And so we're anticipating collecting about $20 million in sales tax that will go to the school system. That's $3 million over what was budgeted for schools this year. So they'll have, that $3 million will go into their fund balance, which they can do capital projects with and help maintain their schools. Now, if you look at the far right column under proposed, you'll see that we moved, we've reduced the sales tax that is going to solid waste, and that we increased the sales tax that is going to highway. And you'll see more details on that as we go to each fund. But that's the basic part of it, Wayne.
Back on that school thing, 60%, is that county and city or just county?
60%.
50% goes to general purpose school fund.
Yes.
Total $3.39 million. Is that just the county's portion? Does that include the city's portion?
That's all countywide, city and county.
That's city and
City and
county.
county.
It's just gonna be 3.1 million.
That was the increase.
20 million plus 23 million.
No. Okay. The total estimated collection is 20 million. Total estimated collection. That's 3.1 million more than was budgeted. That's what that means. I know I have the plus there. In another copy, if it was negative, it'd be in red, but this is a positive number. That's why I have the plus there. So it's total of 20 million, 3.1 million over budget.
And that's city sales tax and county sales
Correct.
tax together.
Countywide.
Is that low compared to a few years ago?
This is the high it's ever been.
Is it?
Yes. What? About 8 to 10% growth in sales tax this year.
That's what?
8 to 10% growth in sales tax this year.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, will the sales tax holiday that our governor has given us for, and I'm thinking it's to October, will it affect this quite a bit?
No, they held the local governments harmless, so it doesn't affect the local option sales tax, just the state portion.
Okay.
Any more questions on sales tax? Okay, let's talk specifically about the general fund. And in the general fund, in the 23-24 budget, next year's budget, it has a deficit of $1.4 million in it. And I'll explain it as I go through. About $1 million of that is capital, is one-time expenses. And we'll talk about that as we proceed. All right, in this budget, the highlight of the budget is that it funds 41 new jail employees, 20 for 6 months and 21 for 3 months. It creates the mental health court through the state grant. It increases the stormwater department funding, which we need to meet the requirements of our stormwater permit. It funds the 40% increase in health insurance premiums, the county's part of it. It'll pay for a 10% COLA for deputies and corrections officers, and a 5% COLA for general government officers or employees. So these are reoccurring expenses. And then some other reoccurring expenses include a $60,000 increase shared with the city of Morristown, 50-50, $30,000 from the city and $30,000 from the county for animal shelter operations, not for capital, for operations. And that will help them with their staffing that was discussed the other night, and also some other expenses that they have. $150,000 from the opioid settlement money is in this budget, and that will go to fund the help fund the jail to work program and the recovery court as well. New employees, there's one in the registered deeds office, and then there's 3 offices that are converting a part-time to a full-time employee. County clerk's eliminating 2 positions, and the assessor's eliminating a half a position. Now, as far as nonprofits, we went through those on Tuesday. 911 increases funding by $55,000. The library, 24.3, ALPS by $2,000. Morristown Task Force for Diversity by $5,000, and the McNabb Center by $500. On the capital expenses, these are one-time expenses. The maintenance department workshop, $30,000. The 4 vehicles, $140,000. The impound lot is $60,000 out of general fund and then $20,000 out of drug fund. The animal shelter expansion, $200,000 there. The pickup truck for EMA, the county match is $41,000. That's what you approved on Tuesday, was the county match, and then there's a state grant that will pay the other half. So that's what you approved. I didn't want to mislead you, and the truck will be in the $70,000 range. We pay half, the state pays half. So 3 to 5 HVAC units, $25,000. The architect assessment, structural assessment of the balconies, $50,000. The jail document imaging project at $21,000. The architect for the new health department projects, $435,000, and then a new roof for the amphitheaters at $35,000. So that totals the $1,032,895 as one-time expenses. Yes, sir.
Have you chosen an architect for the health department yet?
Yes, it's Barbara McMurray. It was selected, last fall.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you did say we'd be getting some of that back, right?
Yes. And it's not funded. It's not in the budget. It's not in the budget. So here's just the graph on what the fund balance, show you the history of the fund balance in the general fund and where we're going with this budget. And so the fund balance, this is total fund balance, will be right at $10.5 million.
Mayor, excuse me, Chair. Mayor, I have one question. I just thought it might be worthy to point out that right now we're showing a $1.4 million deficit or coming out of our general fund.
Correct.
Okay, because of how you budget though, that number will most likely shrink through the year.
Well, in previous years, we've had deficits as large as this one and ended up in the black.
Yes.
Just because of how we are very conservative in our projections for revenue, and we don't spend every penny either. And so I anticipate, I anticipate we'll be very close to breaking even, just depending on how much of the one-time money we spend. You know, like the architect's money, like the animal shelter money, if that's spent or not spent, depending on them. You know, it depends on, the shelter depends on what work they do.
What they get.
But I anticipate that we'll end up in the black, and I think history shows that to be accurate.
I just thought it worthy to point out to everyone that number will fall.
Right, it will. It will. I'm very comfortable with that. This year, this year, we're anticipating that we'll finish about $533,000 in the red, but we've bought a shopping center, which we didn't anticipate, which was, so we're anticipating we'll finish 533 in the negative. We spent probably between $600,000 and $700,000 of county money on the shopping center. And then we bought the cars for the sheriff's department to avoid an increase in that. We added $600,000 to our health plan. That was this year, and still so it's about $2 million in unanticipated expenses, and we're going to finish $500,000 in the red. So to me, that's pretty good.
Mr. Richardson.
Mr. Mayor, the fund balance, what is our range that we like that fund balance to be in?
Our goal is 25%. And, let's see, this is what, I've got it on there. We're at 38 with this.
Sir,
Ms. Howe?
thank you. Mr. Mayor, do we ever tell an architect, hey, we've got $350,000. What can you organize that grocery store into our health department?
What we did, this is the process that you use for architects, is you solicit them by qualifications first.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what we did, and we had a committee that evaluated, I think there were like 7 firms that submitted their qualifications. We had a committee that evaluated, made a recommendation to Barbara McMurray. Then we negotiated with Barbara McMurray. They submitted a proposal, a fee. I went back and tried to negotiate a lower fee, and it didn't work. I mean, basically they said, we're swamped with work. All the other firms are too. And this is our fee.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Chairman, I would ask for a vote on the general fund budget, a recommendation to the full commission.
Do we have a motion? Mr. Horner, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Long, do we have any other discussion? We're open for discussion. If there is none, call the roll.
Debbie Ahern,
Yes.
Chris Cutshaw,
Aye.
Edna Green,
No.
Stan Harville,
Yes.
Bobby Hahn,
Aye.
Tim Horner,
Yes.
Peggy Howe,
No.
Joe Huntsman,
Yes.
Rodney Long,
Yes.
Wayne Neesmith,
I abstain because I've not been here to hear all the comments to or for on any issue to be. I'm not a puppet. I just won't vote that way. I've got to hear what I'm doing. I've got to know what I'm talking about when I vote on it. So I abstain.
Yes.
Mike Reed,
Yes.
Mike Richardson,
Yes.
Kyle Walker.
Yes.
10 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain, motion passes.
Motion passes.
Next fund's the Sanitation Fund, Fund 116. Under this proposal, the budget, we'd be spending about $800,000 out of fund balance in sanitation. We would be, much of that is caused by moving some revenue, sales tax revenue to the highway budget where it's needed. In this budget is only a brush truck. There's no garbage truck in this budget. And so that would have to be added later. You approved a garbage truck out of this year's budget, but that money will go back into fund balance because there's not been ordered. And so if you later this year, if you want to order a garbage truck, then you'd have to add that to the budget. So there's only a brush truck in, as far as new equipment, in this budget. It includes $55,000 for disposal fees that have increased from $45 to $50 a ton. Diesel fuel is up $62,000. There's one new employee in this that Barry asked for, a 5% COLA, and then the health insurance premium increase. So that's what's in the budget. We finished the year with a fund balance of $2.1 million, which is 58%. Yes, sir.
How many brush trucks have you got now, Bill?
That's a Barry question, Wayne.
If I remember.
Is it 7?
There's 6 and 3 of them are being repaired, so.
On the brush trucks.
On the
I can't hear what the figure was.
We have 6, but
You got
3 are
6
being
brush
repaired.
trucks.
Yeah, and 3 being repaired.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, so the $450,000 or $500,000 truck, where that money, it went back to sanitation, not general, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That boy come up there, I said, "Hey, that new brush truck, that boy from Kentucky." Kentworth,
Any other questions?
smelled like a new car, new car.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would ask for a vote on a recommendation.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Cutchild, do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Ahern. Floor is open for discussion.
Just one question, Mayor, on the garbage truck that we approved, will have to go back through the bidding process and do all that again?
Well, we attempted to purchase it through the purchasing co-op. It was on state bid, the purchasing co-op. So the bidding's already done.
Okay,
It's
so,
just the availability. We have to be told, I guess, Barry needs to be told that, but first get a quoted price, because they withdrew their price, because they didn't know when they would get it. And so we would go through the same process. But as far as a full bid process, we would go through the state bid and do it that way. Or Sourcewell, one of the purchasing co-ops.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Debbie Ahern,
Yes.
Chris Cutshaw,
Aye.
Edna Green,
Yes.
Stan Harville,
Yes.
Bobby Hahn,
Aye.
Tim Horner. Yes. Peggy Howe,
Yes.
Joe Huntsman,
Yes.
Rodney Long,
yes.
Wayne Neesmith,
Abstain.
Mike Reed. Mike Richardson,
Yes.
Kyle Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes 12, 1 abstain.
Motion passes.
Bill, it may be too late for this, but I've got a question I'm really concerned about. We've got the wheel tax that came out back in 2001. That's when it came out. That's when we voted to have it. And 27 cents, or $27 goes for wheel tax. And that goes into general fund. That went in for schools and doing the road. What if we'd take that $27 that's in the wheel tax now, plus the new 23 cent, making it 50 cents, and put every bit of that wheel tax on roads, not in general fund, not in schools. The schools haven't been paid for. We're using that money to build a jail with now. So what if we take that 50 cents on wheel tax and fix our roads? $50.
Or the $27 creates about $1.6 million in revenue that goes in the general fund. You'd have to replace that revenue with another revenue source. And we only have 3 options. And that's property tax, wheel tax, and sales tax. Sales tax we're already maxed out on. And so you can't raise it. You can move it around, and with more sales and more business activity, you can raise it. And that's what's happened the last 3 years. But your only option, if you do that, is to raise property tax in the general fund.
So we're locked in right now because you've got to have that money in your general fund.
Yes, sir.
All that wheel tax money can't go for roads, right?
The $27 part of it.
$27.
Right.
How much of that $27 goes in general fund?
All of it.
Nothing goes for roads out there?
Of the $27.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
So we don't have a wheel tax that pays for roads then, until this $23 comes up.
Yeah, the wheel tax has never been appropriated for roads. Throughout its history, it's never been appropriated for roads.
Mayor Britton. Oh, I
That's
didn't make
not the
that,
way
Jeff. Go
it
ahead.
started when we voted for it.
I disagree. I disagree with you.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Britton, I'm assuming by what we're reading, and I was debating earlier, because I'd like to know, every dime of that $23 is going to pave and nothing but the road department, correct?
It's going to the Highway Capital Projects Fund, which, you can buy equipment out of it. Well, I mean, it's up to you guys. I mean, you'll make that decision as what the money's used for. You know, what I would suggest is that you have Barry come and make requests for it, and you appropriate the money based on requests.
But go ahead, I apologize.
That $23 that's coming out now, how much of that goes into general fund?
It doesn't exist.
The new wheel, if they adopt the new wheel tax, how
November.
much?
None of it. None of it. None of it.
None of it goes general fund?
It all goes to Highway Capital Project Fund for highway paving and equipment.
So we're locked in on $23.
No, you could do less.
All
you
you're
could do
getting out of
more.
wheel tax money is $23, right?
Pardon?
$23 is all you're getting out of it. When it goes from 27 to 23 to 50, all we can expect out of it for roads is the $23.
That is your call. That's the commission's call. But under this proposal, $23 would go to Highway Capital Projects Fund to be used for paving.
I'd like to follow up on Commissioner Neesmith's. If we could tell the truck buyer that he has to have gas, could we not say that this money, I don't want it to go into capital projects. I don't want a snow blower or scraper. I want roads. Can we tell Mr. Barry that, hey, this has to go into asphalt in Hamblen County?
You control the purse.
Yeah, that's what he said. We control that.
I think, correct me, but the capital fund is the venue, the avenue that we go into so we don't have to up our maintenance of effort for the roads next year.
Right.
So it's just the fund that it goes to so that it doesn't, if you put it in a different fund, you'll have to fund that amount next year, like the school.
We can use it all for
It's the
roads.
name of the bucket.
Okay,
That's the
thank
name
you.
of the bucket.
Thank
Is
you.
the Highway Capital Projects Fund. And if we put it in Highway Fund, okay, then if we decide, then what that does is that raises our maintenance of effort for highways, and we have to do it. And we don't have as many choices,
I
as many
understand.
options.
And
This
it's
is the way to get it
the
done.
law that we have to
Yes.
fund it the same amount the next year. So anytime we raise that one particular fund, we have to,
That happens.
yeah.
Okay.
Is the state looking to give counties any transportation money?
There is in, did we vote on sanitation?
Yes.
We did.
12
All right, so we're on
12-0.
highway now.
1201
Okay.
mistake.
All right, highway fund. To answer your question, Wayne, is the state has, in the governor's transportation bill that passed, there's about $2.8 million in state aid money for Hamblen County. Now, the state aid money can only be used on, I think, 20% of the roads, which is about 80 miles of roads, and it's these certain roads that it can be used on. It can't be used all across the county on any road. There's only certain roads that money can be used for, and Barry has to prepare a 3-year plan on how he would use that and submit that to the state before we get access to that money. Then we also have to provide a 2% match for it as well. So we did not include in the highway budget, we did not include any of the new money. There is some state aid money in here, but that's money we normally get. We've gotten through the years. But as far as the new money, the 2.8, none of it's in there.
I read somewhere where what you're talking about, you're talking main highways, Old 25 and U 25. The road that goes between them, you can pave it.
Yeah.
you got old 25 and new 25 goes out there to dead end Cott County, you can't pave it.
That's right.
Mr. Mayor, how much is the state aid money that we will have on top of this?
2.8 million. That doesn't have to be spent in 1 year. You have, I think they're going to give you three to 4 years to spend it.
We certainly need it in roads.
So as far as highway fund goes, we moved $563,000 in sales tax from debt service and sanitation to the highway fund. We're still budgeting about $85,000 in fund balance in highway fund. There's $220,000 in that state aid money, which is our normal amount that we receive. We've got additional money in there for diesel fuel, for the COLAs, and for the health insurance premiums. So we would finish the year, if every penny was spent and all the money came in, we expect it to, with about a $356,000 fund balance. Questions?
How did we get, the fund balance was pretty good in 2018, 2009, or 2019?
Yep. Through time, through the years, the fund balance has gone, it's been cyclical. It's gone up and down.
Okay.
And primarily, it's the years when Barry paves, it goes down. And when it went up, you see that spike. That was the year that the Improve Act,
Right.
the gas tax increase that happened under Governor Haslam, that's when it was implemented. And so we didn't spend all that money, and so we were banking it. And so the last few years, we've been spending the money on paving. Mr. Chairman.
Need a motion to approve the highway fund?
So moved.
Mr. Horner, need a second?
Second.
Mr. Walker?
Mr. Walker, second. Floor is open for discussion or questions. I think we've got that pretty well taken care of, so we'll call the roll.
Debbie Ahern,
Yes.
Chris Cutshaw,
Aye.
Edna Green,
Yes.
Stan Harville,
Yes.
Bobby Hahn,
Aye.
Tim Horner,
Yes.
Peggy Howe,
Yes.
Joe Huntsman,
Yes.
Rodney Long,
Yes.
Wayne Neesmith,
Abstain.
Mike Reed, Mike Richardson,
Yes.
Kyle Walker.
Yes.
12 yes, 1 abstain, motion passes.
Motion passes.
The next fund is the Highway Capital Projects Fund. So this fund is empty. We don't have any money in it. And at the start of this budget process, we didn't have any plans to use the fund. So what this proposal is to increase the wheel tax by $23, effective no later than November 1st. If we start collecting it in November, it'll generate about $950,000 that would go into this fund. And then we would direct $1.2 million in interest income, which is right now going to debt service. It would go into the Highway Capital Projects Fund so that we have some money to buy the equipment that Barry has asked for and also to pave with in the spring. And then the $450,000 in equipment that Barry requested moved from the Highway Fund to the Highway Capital Projects Fund. He reduced the number of pickup trucks he's requesting from 4 to 2. That moved to the Highway Capital Projects Fund. So we would have $2,150,000 in revenue anticipated in that fund, about $560,000 of expenditures, and he would come, if there's money in the springtime that you choose you want to pave with, then he would have to come to you to get that money.
With a,
None of
with a
it.
plan,
Pardon?
with a plan.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The equipment purchases for the prep work, right? Wasn't it?
Correct.
Prepping the
Patching
road,
and
patching, yes. uh-huh.
Patching.
So that's a money saver down the road.
It's, or, I don't know if I would characterize it, it's a different function from paving, it's patching.
No, that's not the road prep.
No, that's patching.
Okay. You know, we'd talked about the road prep and him doing his own road prep. We haven't gotten there yet.
I may be wrong. He may have mentioned in his presentation about the paver, the mini paver.
He did.
Now, that would
Right.
be in the paving side of it.
I think he indicated, Chairman, that it would be partially for road prep in his indication for this equipment.
That's what I thought.
Even with the patching, is going through and preparing.
Yeah. Because we talked about some money savings on the road prep. Was a
Right.
big deal.
Chairman
Mr. Rock?
Hahn, could I step out for just a minute? I've got an emergency phone.
Yes, go right ahead.
Now, one thing we can do, like right now, is there's no money in the fund, so there's no money to buy the equipment on July 1st. Is we could do this, and I talked to county audit about this today, is we could, if we want to move forward with purchasing the equipment and buy it or at least order it this summer, we could borrow, when we've done this before, we could borrow money from ourselves. We could borrow money from the debt service fund and then pay it back next spring when the money starts coming in from the wheel tax and the interest income. And we would borrow it at no interest, and we're borrowing from another pot to use, and we could go ahead and order it and get that ball rolling on that. So we could do that, and we could address that in July.
Mr. Hahn.
Yes, Ms. Howell.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know, but, life happens, and when you go get all that stuff, and then you go, oh, my goodness, this thing came up, and, oh, that was a bigger, I don't want to run out of paving money. And we've got a patching crew. Those pickups might not be brand new, but that kind of scares me because, I don't know, life happens, and you could say, golly, we got all this equipment and the patching, and oh gee, this came up we were not anticipating, that diminishes I'm just stating that out there.
I understand.
Thank you.
Again, it's your all's call.
Mr. Chairman.
Bill, did Barry give you any idea how long it'd take to get this patching equipment ready?
He said well,
I mean,
first
he
statement
talked to
was,
him?
yeah, first statement it's nothing like the trucks.
That's right.
Where it's about a year and a half wait. It may be 4 to 6 months before you get it. Something like that.
Mr. Long, do you have a question?
Yes. We need to keep in mind that to prep this road is $179,000 a mile if you hire outside source. So Mr. Poole said that he could prep, and that's what the second crew is for. And he gave a list of the priority of the roads. He's already got that. I think Ms. Howell's got a copy. I've got a copy. All that's broke down, the priority of the roads in each end of the county that has to be done. So he has all that available. He has a plan, that he gave us.
That's
I
what I
think it's
mentioned
approved by
earlier.
the road commission. too.
Yes, that's what I mentioned earlier about the prep work on the
We've
road.
used that list.
We've got to cut that cost as much as
Ain't changed a bit.
possible.
I'm not sure what's listed.
Yeah, that's that list, got all the roads rated to 4, 3, or 2, or 1. Same old, just change the date on.
I had to see it.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
that's presentation.
We need to get a motion for the Highway Capital Projects Fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Ahern, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Harville, second. Let's call the roll.
Debbie Ahern,
Yes.
Chris Cuttshaw,
Aye.
Edna Green,
Yes.
Stan Harville,
Yes.
Bobby Hahn,
Aye.
Tim Horner,
Yes.
Peggy Howe,
Yes.
Joe Huntsman,
Yes.
Rodney Long,
Yes.
Wayne Neesmith,
Abstain?
Mike Reed,
Yes.
Mike Richardson,
Yes.
Kyle Dixon. 11 yes, 1 pass, and 1 abstain. Motion passes.
Motion passes.
The next fund is debt service. In the debt service fund, we've got all the debt issued for the Justice Center and the school projects. The debt was issued this year for the landfill expansion. The Solid Waste Board will reimburse us for those payments. I think it's a 14-year bond, and we've made the first interest payment and have been reimbursed for that. So the right now is the fund balance. We expect to finish the year with 12 million, estimated revenue right at 9 million, expenditures about 10.2. So our fund balance at the end of fiscal year 24 would be about 10.8, which was the spending fund balance through 2026 was part of the plan. We spiked up, you'll see this chart, we spiked up in building fund balance and then started spending it this year and until 2026, and then our payments we pay off two bonds. We pay off the E4A in 2025, and then the bond that we use to renovate East High School, we pay it off in 26, and then our revenue will exceed our bond payments. One thing that happened this year where we had our interest income at about $1.3 million, or no more than that. We're expect $1.6 million this year, where we budgeted $260,000. So that will help our debt service fund, and so that's why we were able to move it to start our paving program. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
and I didn't mean to jump in front of you, sir. First question. When we first started the jail, Jens assessed $75 million. We've went over that, and you addressed that as far as the Justice Center. When you moved the 12 cents from the property tax to the jail, is that going to be a one-time thing, or are we going to have to look at something else next year? Because
We've moved property tax rate from the school's general purpose to the general fund the last 3 years.
Okay.
Because of the growth in sales tax. I consider it, you're managing your property tax by moving the money around to where it's needed the most. That you're managing, and that's what our job is to manage what the public gives us. And we'll need more revenue next year, probably, because we'll be funding the jailers for a full year. In the initial presentation I made, we're looking at probably $1.2 million in addition to pay for the staff of the new facility. But as far as I can't and I won't stand here tonight and say, okay, next year we're going to have a property tax increase and it's going to be X. There's too many things that can happen.
I understand that part, but let me be a little more point blank. The rumor was, to start with, that with the increase in deputies, not counting the increase from 75 million to 103, the last report that we had. Is the 12 cents a one-time deal, or am I understanding you that possibly it would be available next year and the next year so that we don't have to look at other alternatives, is my direct question.
No, it's moved there until you, unless you use it somewhere else. I mean, the intent is not to move the 12 cents for 1 year. That's not the intent.
Okay.
The intent is to keep it there.
Okay, that's what I want to know, sir.
That's the intent.
That's what I want to know, sir. Thank you.
Let's see. Any other questions? Mr. Chairman, I would ask for a vote on the debt service budget.
Need a motion to accept the debt service fund.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Cutchild, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Long. Call the roll.
Debbie Ahern,
Yes.
Keith Cutshaw,
Aye.
Edna Green,
Yes.
Stan Harville,
Yes.
Bobby Hahn,
Aye.
Tim Horner,
Yes.
Peggy Howe,
Yes.
Joe Huntsman,
Yes.
Rodney Long,
Yes.
Wayne Neesmith,
Abstain?
Mike Reed,
Yes.
Mike Richardson,
Yes.
Kyle Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes 12, one abstain.
Motion passes.
Okay, the last fund is the drug fund. And in the drug fund, when we discussed it, really the only expense that's not routine year in and year out is the $20,000 that the drug fund would contribute to the impound lot, the construction of the impound lot. There's $60,000 in the general fund, and then this $20,000 from the drug fund. And our normal practice in the drug fund is we estimate very, very, very low on the revenues, because you never know what seizures are made by the narcotics unit, when seizures they've already made are distributed by the court. We don't have control over that. So we budget very low as far as that goes in the drug fund. So that's where the revenues of $36,000 with appropriation of $121. And I think it's just been in the last month or so that we had $100,000 released by the court to our drug fund from a seizure. So, we had no control over that, and so this is how we operate the drug fund.
Looks like as much as we're hearing about drugs, it's a source of revenue, but, goodness.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
is there a reason we can't take more out for the impound lot?
Good question.
$100,000 cash is, my whole career, it's never happened. These guys worked about 9 months on this and basically hit it at the right time, to be honest, to be able to seize this money. That's not, they do their buy money out of this, they pay for their own vehicles out of this. I guess if it went way over, we could use some of it, but that's how they operate. They operate off of what they seize, sell from that money.
Okay.
Any other questions? Chairman?
Need a motion to accept the drug fund.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Harville, need a second?
Second.
Mr. Long. We can call the roll.
Debbie Ahern,
Yes.
Chris Cutshaw,
Aye.
Edna Green,
Yes.
Stan Harville,
Yes.
Bobby Hahn,
Aye.
Tim Horner,
Yes.
Peggy Howe,
Yes.
Joe Huntsman,
Yes.
Rodney Long,
Yes.
Wayne Neesmith,
Abstain?
Mike Reed, Mike Richardson,
Yes.
Kyle Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
And Mr. Chairman, just to wrap up, this is just a summary of what's in the budget that you've just recommended to the county commission is an increase in the wheel tax of $23 to $50. The proceeds go in the Highway Capital Projects Fund, moving $563,000 of sales tax to solidify the highway fund, you rebuild the reserves of our health insurance plan with the 40% premium increase, new jail staff, 20 positions funded for 6 months, 21 for 3 months, 10% pay raise for law enforcement and corrections, 5% for general government, sanitation, and highway employees. And we will, in July, we can look at budgeting the SRO money once we get a more definitive answer on how much money that's going to be and what the costs are, and the sheriff starts the process of hiring his folks. And then the state aid road money, once we get farther down that road, we can budget that in. As far as the budget process, you've got at your desk the notice that I have to give the chairman on a special called meeting, and only 3 items can be considered at that meeting, and that's adopt a tax resolution, which will break down the property tax and where it will go. There also will be provisions in there for the sales tax, where it goes, for the wheel tax, where it goes, and then the appropriation resolution, which spells out where the money's going, what funds and what departments, and then the nonprofit resolution. So there's three resolutions that will be voted on at the meeting on the 29th. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got.
Do I have any quick questions?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. Me and Mr. Cutshaw were downstairs talking with Harley, and I told him I'd ask, and since we've got the mayor and all commissioners here with the exception of Mr. Doty, I would like to reiterate that if I have your permission, sir. His point was he's part-time, and he asked why, if there was any chance that the part-time help could access the clinic and be eligible for the medicine thing. And my question to the mayor is, if that were possible, what kind of expense would we be looking at? Because it is a great retention product for our part-time help.
Currently, our policy is part-time who average over 25 hours a week have access to the clinic for 6 visits in a year's time.
Why is it limited 6 visits, if you don't care to tell me?
First was retainage, like you said. There's offices that I guess depend on, why is it listed? Well, let me finish. 6, it's cost.
Okay.
I mean, we're already having to raise, the insurance premiums help pay for the clinic.
Yes, sir.
So restricting it to employees with 25 hours or more, and then the six visits is cost.
Do they have the availability of getting their medicine at that time, out of curiosity? Because that was one of the discussions we had.
That's part of the advantage of the clinic.
Okay.
They're generic. They're generic drugs they can get at the clinic.
That's still a break for what most
Absolutely.
medicines cost, so.
Absolutely. That's why we do it.
Okay. Are our part-time help, well, I used the wrong verbiage, my apologies. Do our part-time help, have they been notified of this? Have they, because he didn't know anything about it, is the way I understood it. Is that the way you understood it, Chairman?
No, ma'am, I did not. I understood him to know that he was under the threshold, and he was hoping the threshold could be lowered. That's what I understood. And well, he's on the verge of that threshold as it stands right now, but there are others that do not meet that threshold.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We stand adjourned.